Hi everyone, welcome back. And today's topic is we are going to introduce functions. So we are going to understand what function is, and we are going to understand how the execution of function takes place. In fact, the entire program, how it works. Okay. So functions is basically, it helps us to break down a long code into domains. What I mean by domains is into a small sub programs. Okay, you can say this. Okay, so we basically break down a longer program into a small sub programs. Okay, this we normally have this practice. We normally do this practice is because it helps in maintaining of code pretty easy. Okay, so in any industry, on any software that you develop, you cannot imagine developing a software without using some functions. Okay, so every software that has been developed, it has many modules, and the modules have many functions, and it also helps us to tracking the errors. That is, error tracking and debugging becomes pretty easy when you have functions, and it helps in avoiding the repetitive code. So if there is a there is a kind of a code that you normally need to have in every part of your program, in such a situation, you can have that code under a function, and you can simply call that function. So basically it helps to avoid that repetitive code. So if you have a program where you are actually repeating a lot of code, so that's not a good practice. So you need to put such a code under a function and let the function do the work. Okay, so in this particular tutorial, we are just going to understand how to define a function, and how to give a call to the function, and how that execution of the code, how the interpreter interprets that line by line, and how it executes the entire program is what we are going to understand in this particular tutorial. This is just an introduction to functions, and there are so many things to understand into this for this particular topic. Okay, so we're just going to understand how to define a function and how the things work. Okay, so let us start. So I'm using the Spider IDE at this point. So it's pretty nice, pretty stable, and it is used by all the professionals around the world, and it's normally used for many of the scientific projects. So it's a wonderful IDE. So that's Spider that I'm using. I'm not going to go into detail how what are the features of this IDE, or how to debug or anything of that sort. We're just going to get concerned with our topic, that is how to define a function. Okay, so this is line 1, and for defining a function, so the very first thing to have a function is to define a function. Now when I use the word function, we have already used so many functions, isn't it? Like the function like print, even print is a function, but this is a function. Okay, it's a function that is used by Python, right? I mean, it is a Python's function. It is a predefined function. So we call this as a predefined, a predefined function. Okay, that is of Python, right? That's a predefined functions, which is readily available for you to use this. It's a function which is used to print something onto the console, isn't it? And then there are so many other methods, which I always say that the functions that are associated with an object are called as methods. So we have used so many methods, like we had a list, just like a list, and then there are some list methods that we have used, like l dot append. Okay, so this is also a function, but it is associated with an object that is a list, and so it is called as a method. Okay, so even this is a predefined functions of Python, which is normally used. It is used with an object, so we call this as a method. So method and function is one and the same thing, understand it. Okay, so these are the functions which we have used, that is predefined by Python. But as a programmer, you can come up with your own functions, and such a functions are called as user defined functions. That is user defined, or a programmer defined functions. That programmer defines his own functions for his own convenience. Okay, so user defined function, and this is what we are going to understand, and we are going to uh, learn how a function works. Now to define a function, okay, all we need to do, okay, to define a function, all we need to do is use a keyword that is def, that is def. Now this is a keyword. Okay, this indicates to the interpreter that anything that is followed by this keyword after this keyword is actually a function. Okay, so you can give a name to your function. Now, how can you give a name to your function? So function name is the same rule that is used for declaring an identifier. Okay, so that the same rule will be followed over here. So you can give any name as per the rules, and as per the rules that we have for declaring an identifier. So I can give a name something like test. So test, and then this opening and closing bracket. So this is very important. Every function, you can see every function will have this bracket, that is opening and closing bracket. So it indicates that this is a function, and then followed by a colon. So this def is a keyword, name of my function is test, and then opening closing bracket, and then this colon, and after this, so this will actually define a block code after the colon. So you can see there is a indentation out here. So whatever I type after this will be the part of this function. So I will simply type, that is hey, I am, okay, I am inside a function, a function test. That's it. Okay, so this is the only message that I will give, and then I'll come out of this function, that is I'll just come out of that indentation. So I came over here, so I'm out of this function now. Okay, so this is called as a function definition. You can call this as a function definition, right? So this thing where we actually write the code of that function is called as function definition. Always understand. So this is function definition, where we have at this point only one line of code. Okay, this is just one line of code that we have, but this is a function definition. And then I need to come outside the function, and then I start with my main program. So I just have this this comment, that is a main, just to tell you that now our main program starts. So our main program starts from maybe from class, this is line 6. Okay, and then I'll just give this print statement, and I say that I am, okay, inside the main program. So I'm just printing this message that I'm inside the main program. So this is the first statement of your program. Okay, I'll just tell you, and then I'm using the function test, which is already defined over here. Okay, which is already defined over here. So this, now of this, what I'm using over here is called as function call. Okay, so this is called as the function call. So I'm calling to this function, I'm giving a call to this function, just like I'm using a print statement. So even this print statement is a call to it, to the print function, but this is like a predefined function of Python. So similarly, I'm using this function just like this print function you can see over here. And since I've defined this in the same in the same program, so this is a call to that function. So from here, the interpreter will actually jump to this function. Okay, we'll come back to this. I'll just complete this program, and then I say that I am back. I'm back to the main program. Okay, now let us understand this code. And now what is going to happen over here is the interpreter is first going to encounter this line, that is line 2, and the moment it encounters this line, it is going to encounter the keyword that is def. The moment it encounters the word def, so the interpreter understands that this is actually a function definition. Okay, so what it is going to do, it is going to ignore the entire definition. It is going to ignore this entire definition and straight away jump to line number 6. That is, this is the main program. This is the first line of code that will get executed. Always remember that the line, it is a top to bottom approach. So this becomes the first line of code, understand it. So this is the first line of the main program. Okay, and then this is the second line. Now this second line, as I said, this is called as the function call. So you're basically calling to this function. And what will happen from here, the interpreter will jump to this method, and then it will print, hey, I'm inside the function test. And then once it completes all the executes all the line of code of this particular function, it will return back where it was called. I mean, it was called to over at this line, that is line 7, so it will return to the next line, that is the line number 8. Okay, so if I run this code, and you can see the output over here. Okay, I'll just run this code. Okay, just a minute. Okay, I just run this program, and now you can see the output over here. So this is the first line. As I said, I'm inside the main program, and then I'm giving a call to this function, so it jumps to this function and it says, hey, I'm inside the function test. Since there is only one line, the function gets over and it returned back to the next line where the function was called. So that was line number 7 that the function was called. So it will return to the next line, that is line number 8, and it says I'm back to the main program. Okay, now we will just debug this, and just to understand how the things are working. Okay, so just to debug, I'm not going to get into details how to debug this using the spider. For your understanding, I just want you to understand, focus on this particular topic, that is how a function and is being called and how it gets executed. Okay, so I'll just debug this, and you can just see that this yellow line, so not the yellow line, the orange line, and it has immediately come to line number 2. Since this is a comment, so comments gets ignored, so you can see this got highlighted. Okay, that is line 2. And then what will happen is, since this is a function definition, so the interpreter will ignore this entire definition of this function, and it will straight away jump to line 6. You can see it has jumped to line number 6. Okay, so you can see over here also, since the spider is very fantastic, and you can see line by line how it works. So this, you can see this over here, you can focus it over here. It shows the arrow that line 2 was is what it got encountered first. But since this is a definition, so immediately you can see this arrow, it got to line number 6. So we are at line number 6 over here. Okay, and then it will go to test. Okay, it will go to the test. Now test is it's a function defined by the programmer, so it will jump to that particular function. You can see over here, and now from here immediately it jumped to number 2, and you can see it over here, the arrow that is jumped to this particular function, that is test. And here it is going to execute this print statement, right? And then from here it goes back to line number 8. So you can see how it jumps to line number 8. So we are at line number 3 right now, and from here straight away it will jump to line number 8. Okay, so just check this out, and here it is. Now it has jumped to line number 8, and you can see over here we are at line number 8 now. And when I click over here, that will print that message, that is I am back, and that function, the entire program gets over. So this is how the interpreter actually executes the entire program. If it is a definition, it will ignore the entire definition, and it will come back. In fact, you can have as many functions as you want. There is a test function, you can come up with many more functions. So it will ignore all that, all those definitions of that function, and it will straight away jump to the main program, the first line of code of the main program. So this is the first line of code. So it starts from here, and then when I give a call to this function, then it jumps to that function, prints that particular, executes those line of codes, and then jumps back where it was called. It will jump back to the next line, that is the line number 8 at this instance. Okay, so this is how a function works. Now there are so many things to understand, like we are going to understand what are parameters and different types of parameters, and how to return a value from a function, how to do certain calculations in a function and return a value from that function. All this we are going to see in my upcoming video. Okay, so bye for now.